members of Tales of Laughing Fox up here. Happy Baystock, everybody! Yeah! Height Sha. A lot of times, you know, people ask me when I do demonstrations, well, what's it like being Anishinaabe? And I always like to refer to our language because our language is kind of like our code, you know, encoded in the language is how we live. You know, there's lessons in our language. Each word is like a magic word. And whenever the Anishinaabe introduce themselves, they always like to say, Indanawe Maganiduk. Hello to all my relatives. But that just doesn't mean my biological relatives. Not only my mother, my father, my grandparents, my siblings. I'm honoring and respecting that light, that life that resides in all things. I'm acknowledging the spirit that's in that tree, the spirit that's in that rock, the spirit that's in that river. I'm acknowledging all those things, and I'm calling them my relatives, because the Anishinaabe believe that we all come from one place and we are all connected together. Like most stories, you know, we start off with, you know, a long time ago, Ginwej Gigo, a long time ago, when there was just darkness and there was only the Creator. And the Creator, in the beginning, he sent out his voice, and his voice echoed around the universe. And his voice would return to him without being heard. And this made the Creator very sad and lonely. And while he was there in the universe, a vision came to him. And in his vision, he saw galaxies full of stars and planets. And he saw Mother Earth. And as he came closer to Mother Earth, he saw all the great things on Mother Earth. He saw all the different landscapes. He saw all the different plants. He saw all the different animals. And in his dream, he heard every sound on Mother Earth, how everything was to be. And as he came from this vision and he awoke, he knew that this vision had to come to pass, and he had to make this creation. So he grabbed stuff from the four corners of the universe, and he blew into the sacred Miga shell. And as he blew into the shell, life began. They call that the Big Bang. And after he created Mother Earth, birds flew for the first time, fish swam for the first time, and all the animals walked the earth for the first time. And in his vision, he also saw man. He saw the Anishinaabe. He saw the first people that he would place on Mother Earth. But he only saw one. He only saw the original man, and he placed him down first. And he tasked the original man with naming creation. Ladies and gentlemen, we present to you the Creator's voice. Oh, miigwech, miigwech. I like to tell stories, and one of the things I do is I travel all over the place, and I do cultural demonstrations and talk about stories. And a lot of times people are interested in the creation stories of things. And the Anishinaabe people, we have creation stories for everything. We have creation stories on why the raccoon wears a mask. We have creation stories on how the Apostle Islands were created. And we even have creation stories on why the dogs smell each other's butts. But it's my pleasure and honor to tell this story about the flute, the creation story of the Native American courting flute. It's a story of unconditional love, love for one another, love for our parents, our grandparents. It's truly a healing instrument and a spiritual tool. And I've been playing now for at least 20 years, and I've traveled all over the place. And wherever I've played the flute, I'm always amazed and astonished on the effect that it has on people. And the story goes a long time ago in a village far, far away. There was a young man who was good at everything. He was good at hunting. He was good at fishing. And once he came back from this hunt, a very successful hunt, and all the people in his village were celebrating. And he looked over, he saw this young woman in his village, somebody who he really admired. You know, he felt like he loved her. And he thought to himself, this is it. You know, I'm going to go up and I'm going to tell her how I feel, you know. And this guy was good at everything, but he wasn't good at expressing his feelings, you know. He even wrote a little song for her. He would drum, you know, this little Chippewa is gonna chip away at your heart. And he went up to sing that to her, and he was too embarrassed. The words failed him, it wouldn't come out. So he went in the back of the village, and he watched as other young men of courting age came up. And offered her gifts and trying to get her attention and her affection. So while he was watching this, you know, he became frustrated, and he remembered in his stories that there was a love medicine out there, and that the Ayabe, which is a huge albino buck that lives to the west, this Ayabe carried that love medicine, and he thought to himself that if he could find this love medicine and somehow get that from that Ayabe, that he could present that love medicine to her, and then she would know how he felt about her. So he packed up a bunch of provisions, and he went out into the woods, and he found the biggest set of elk tracks that he could find. And he thought to himself, this is it. This has got to be the Ayabe. So he started following the tracks, and they led him deeper and deeper into the woods, further and further away from his village. And he would always see this flash of white out of the corner of his eye, and he'd pull back his bow and arrow just in time to see it gone. And he would do that. He would follow those tracks. They would lead him deeper and deeper. He'd see that flash out of the corner of his eye. He'd pull back his bow and arrow, but it would be gone. Finally, days and days of this went on, and he was exhausted from his travels. So he made a fire underneath this huge cedar tree. And as he was sitting there listening to the crackle and pop of the fire, the wind had picked up. And he heard this sound, this distant sound from far away. He went went to sleep with that on his mind. The next day he woke up to a knocking. And when he opened his eyes and he looked up into that tree, he could see that there was a bird on that branch. And that bird was knocking holes into that branch. And when that bird flew away, the wind had picked up again, and it made that sound. And as soon as he heard that, he knew that that's what he was searching for. He knew that the Ayabe had led him there. So he reached up into the tree and he grabbed a hold of that branch and he broke it off. And as he was studying it, he was trying to figure out how to get that sound from that branch. So he started to blow on it. This way, nothing. He's blowing on it like this. Still nothing. He was even going like this, trying to get the wind to pass over those holes, but still nothing. So when seeking an answer, like his elders had taught him, he pulled out some asema, some sacred tobacco, and he said a prayer to that bird, and he fed that tobacco into the fire, and it turned to smoke and brought his prayers up to the spirit world. And as he sat there waiting, listening for an answer, he went to sleep. And in his dream, that bird visited him, and it asked him, "What is it that you seek?" And the young man told him of his dilemma, told him about his heart's desire, and about his inability to express his feelings. And as the bird listened to him, he took pity on him, and he told him how to build the first bibi guan, which is the indigenous word for flute, bibi guan. And as he instructed him in this vision on how to build the first one, he said, and when you play this bibi guan, when you blow into it, it'll wabi guan out the other end. Your feelings will wabi guan. Wabi guan is the Ojibwe word for flower. It'll flower out of the end of the bibi guan. So when he woke from this vision, he began constructing the first flute out there. And after it was complete, then he went back to his village. And as he stood up on a hill, he looked down into his village, and he could see everybody down there. They were all doing different things, getting ready for the changing of the seasons. Some people were dancing wild rice. Some people were drying out meat. Some people were gathering berries. Some people were smoking fish. And as he stood up on top of that hill, he closed his eyes and he began to play. He began to blow in there, the image of his heart's desire here, and he felt it. That sound left the bibi guan and it went down into the hill where all the people were working. And everybody that heard that sound stopped what they were doing because nobody had ever heard anything like that before. And that sound, that music, it made its way to the wigwam of the young woman. The wigwam is the traditional home of the Anishinaabe in this area. And as soon as she heard that sound, she knew instantly that that was for her. So she came out of her wigwam and she looked up onto that hill and she could see that young man up there. She always knew who he was, and she always wondered why he never came and talked to her. So as he sat there playing, she came up and she stood next to him. And she was just amazed and overwhelmed that somebody could express so much emotion without uttering a single word. And as she listened, she realized that the music was intertwining their spirits together. Miigwech, miigwech. Miigwech means thank you in the Anishinaabe language. Funny thing about the language is we don't have any word for you're welcome. We don't have any word for goodbye. And we really don't have any like swear words either. You know, we just didn't have that in our culture, you know, those derogatory things, you know, we didn't look at body parts in a derogatory way. You know, and the worst thing that you could call somebody was ani mush back then. And I guess that was, you know, fighting words, but ani mush is the Ojibwe word for dog. And I guess that was like the worst thing that you could call somebody. I came out and I invited out some people with me. We got Doug here. We got Phil on the drums. We got Mike Stanley here on the guitar. And we got my friend Jeremy out here. And usually when Anishinaabe and Ojibwe do things, you know, we usually start with a hand drum song. And me and this guy have been friends since we were 5 years old. Me and him been friends forever, brothers, you know, really. And we'll be drumming some songs today. We thought that maybe Baystock, you know, has never experienced some hand drumming like this. And Jeremy's a lead singer, so I'll be following his lead, you know. And the drum is one of the oldest instruments out there. It's right up there with the flute. You know, one flute dates back 44,000 years ago, and it was actually made out of the rib bone out of a cave bear. So that's pretty old, you know, and they say our human voices were one of the oldest instruments. And the drum, because the drum represents the heartbeat, and we associate that with our mothers being in the womb, hearing the first rhythms of our life. We associate that with the heartbeat of Mother Earth. And a long time ago, the Ojibwe, you know, we were fighting with the Lakota people. And there was one woman of the Lakota, her name was Eagle Tail woman, and she had watched as her band was slaughtered. And she hid in a pond, and she was breathing through a reed, and she was underneath the water for 4 days. And while she was under the water, she had a vision of 4 horses handing down a drum to the people to the east. And when she came out of this vision, she understood that to be the Anishinaabe, because the Anishinaabe people lived to the east. And she brought these visions back to her people, back to the Lakota people, and told the medicine men about this vision. And they said that this drum had to be made and given to the Anishinaabe people to bring peace between our peoples. And the warriors of the Lakota went, and I think it was up in Minnesota on those boundaries. They went and they brought that drum, and all the Ojibwe thought they were outnumbered, outgunned. They thought they were going to be slaughtered, but instead the Lakota presented us with a drum, and the idea was that these warriors who had fought against each other, these veterans, would sit down and they would sing with each other for the first time, in our hearts beating as one for the first time. And then the next generation wouldn't know war, but they would only know the stories. And then the next generation, and then so on and so forth, until our warriors would bring us peace in that sense. And the United States government can learn something about 2 peaceful nations coming together in a peace treaty of sorts. So this is like a honor song that we're going to sing for those who had come before us, a way of paying homage to those people. And so I hope you enjoy. First time at Baystock, all right.
Na na
Wow, Chimigwich, first time at Baystock. Whoa. The heart of the Anishinaabe beating out here, loud and proud. Chimigwich, to my brother Mukwa Noden here, it means bear wind. So Chimigwich, Chimigwich. He'll be coming up for a couple more songs today, so nice. John Wayne's teeth, John Wayne's teeth, are they real? Are they fake? Way, way. They just said John Wayne tried to beat up some Indian lady a long time ago at the Grammys or something. They had to hold him back, physically restrain him as this little leaf went to go and get a present for Marlon Brando. And she was saying about how Hollywood discriminates against Native peoples, and they only get, these white actors doing brownface in there. So, we've been through a lot of different things for the Anishinaabe people. And one thing that I like to express and keep in everybody's mind is we didn't have freedom of culture, or freedom of language, freedom of religion until 1978, and that's only 44 years ago. So, before that, we had generations of silence, and our dances were outlawed, our language was outlawed, our songs were outlawed, and now generations after 1978, we're kind of like picking up the pieces of that. We're reclaiming our native heritage. We're reclaiming that which was once taken from us. And I really love that Baystock gives me a platform to be able to be expressive and creative in that way. In that sense that they're helping our culture to live on. So Chimigwich to all the founders of Baystock for that musical journey that we're all on together. I always like to come out here and I always like to do the squirrel song. But Jitamo Waning, when I was first learning how to play the flute, I spent like 2 years in the woods before I made my way to street corners in Bayfield, and then eventually bus stops and airports and this kind of stuff. But my biggest teachers on how to play the flute were the animals, were the wind through the trees, the sunlight through the canopy, and I would look for these places and play. And one day I was out there in the woods, and there was some squirrels chasing each other around, and I thought, I'm going to try to talk to these squirrels. So I started to play, and they were running all over the place, and they stopped running right away, and they kind of checked me out, they were like, what's going on here, who's this big squirrel in our territory here, and that's where this song comes from. And most of the songs that I've learned on the flute, I can't read music and stuff like that, but I just go out and experiment with those animals and those teachers that are out there willing to teach us if we're willing to listen. This is called a Jitamo Waning, which means squirrel tail. miigwech. Beautiful musical experiment going on up here. Oh, miigwech. So the next song we're gonna play, I like to call it the Shapeshifter. And I have over 20-some flutes, and each one is made out of a different kind of material, and it has its own sound, its own voice, and its own spirit. You know, so whenever I pick up a flute, you know, there's always something there. And this flute was gifted to me by one of my fellow tribal members, and it's called the Shapeshifter. And when you look at it this way, it kind of looks like the gigu, it looks like the fish. You know, when he said this piece up here, it kind of looks like a horse that's turning into an eagle. He said like that cloud that we see that keeps shape-shifting for us. And then he says when you hold it up this way, it kind of makes out the kuku, which is the Ojibwe word for owl. And in our culture, Winnebuju, he shapeshifts a lot into different animals. And he teaches us how to live, and more oftentimes than not, how not to live. And so when I play this song, I like to put on my fox head in that form, in that way. I'm paying homage to those spirits, you know, the shape-shifting realm. So this next song is called Shapeshifter. Switching over to another flute there. This one was gifted to me by a woman, and her name was Mainganakwe, which means the wolf woman in the Anishinaabe language. And I was playing at Big Top Chautauqua one day, and this famous flute player was up there. His name's Carlos Nakai. He's kind of like the godfather of flute music for Native American peoples. And I was talking to him and having dinner with him, and I was like, hey, you know, I can't read music or anything. Is there any pointers you can give me? He goes, oh, you're doing just fine. You know, you don't need to learn all that stuff. He's like, just keep doing what you're doing and playing from the heart. And I thought, wow, that's amazing, you know. And he says, but I will tell you one thing. And I said, what's that? And he said, beware the woman that gives you a flute. And I was like, what? I was like, why? He's like, because I married the one that gave me one. And he's pointing at his wife. And they had a nice little laugh, you know. And I was like, oh, cool. You know, so like 3 months later, there I am hanging out with the wolf woman. And she goes, hey, I got something for you. And I was like, oh, yeah, what's that? She pulled out this box, you know, and it had this nice, pretty wrappings on it. And I was like, right away, I was like, oh, no. And then I started to open it up, and sure enough, it was a BB guan. It was a flute in there. And I was like, oh, no, oh, no. You know, and everything was going good between, you know, Laughing Fox and Wolf Woman. Until one full moon, she tried to eat Laughing Fox. And I barely escaped with my tail intact. You know? Oh man, it was something. So for those of you that know me, you know that I never play this flute on a full moon. Otherwise I can hear her out there. You know, my middle name is Scooter. You know, and I'll hear her on a full moon if I play this flute. She'll be going, Scooter! It's time for me to run for my life again, you know. But like in the story, you know, you always play from the heart with good feelings, and no matter what happens in our relationships, we always got to remember those good things. This song is called The Wolf Woman, and it mimics that of the wolves, you know, another song that I learned from our animal brothers and sisters. All right, Chimigwich. Just like to thank everybody for coming out and being together. We're gathered here today, much of that like our ancestors, coming together to share culture, to share stories, to share music. In that sense, we are truly paying homage to those who had come before us. So Chimigwich for that. I'll finish off this last song with a song on the double drone flute. I just love this flute so much. And I was at an airport once, and I was sitting there playing, and I close my eyes when I play, so I go right back, to the woods where I learned how to play this instrument. And when I opened my eyes after like 2 hours of playing, there was a ring of people around me, a circle of people around me. And as I looked at these people, I realized, they were kind of dirty looking, and I realized they were homeless people, And this guy comes up to me and he's like, hey man, he's like, my name's Curtis, that's some good flute playing. And I said, oh hey, thank you Curtis, my name's Laughing Fox. And he looked at me really weird and he goes, hey man, how'd you know my name was Curtis? And I knew then that I wasn't in the Northwoods, Can't just go hide behind a tree like that. So I wondered about us, I wondered about their situations, what got them to these places. And then I realized that the flute music had brought us together, and it didn't matter where we came from, because in that moment, we were all one in a circle, and we were all there together, and nothing else mattered but that. Next song is called The Traveler. Chimigwich. Thank you everybody for coming out and enjoying some of the tales of Laughing Fox. Thank you to Baystock, and thank you to the good, talented musicians, Mike, Doug, Phil, wherever he went. Thank you for coming up. Jeremy Makonoden for coming out and blessing us with some of his beautiful voice. And Truly, it was an honor for us to come out and share with you today. Chi miigwech, everybody. Chi miigwech. Enjoy the rest of Baystock.